Good. Just FYI, my power at my house flickered a couple times in the last 20 minutes. It appears to be back, but if it goes, I'll just call back from my
Oh,
phone on just and I'll
flickered
be
like
back in a few
okay, like the
seconds if I.
power's going on and off. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
that's what you mean. All right. Ooh. Yeah. So if you drop off, I'll know why. All right. Thanks for the warning.
yes, and I'll be back shortly just on my phone. It should work fine, but just letting you know, I'll be back if I disappear.
Okay. No problem. So for this one, I guess I have kind of two questions. I've been working on I guess, on a different version of what I think a Stoneblade list could look like.
Okay,
So it's pretty different than what I tried last time. I don't know if you
cool.
want to see the gameplay first or go over what I'm doing first.
Yeah, let's talk about the deck first, so then that can inform my thoughts during gameplay.
Okay, so up top, I've gone down on the normal Jace to Fairy Narset thing and just basically trimmed down to three Narsets. I still
Okay.
like her, but it, it's kind of clunky. Snapcaster has been good. I have been liking Tameo. Um, I think it's a little. I've been more impressed by this card than I thought I would be. Um, I mean, there's the obvious thought that she's kind of a bullet magnet for Stoneforge,
Hmm.
but I kind of thought the floor on her would be a bit of a problem because these at least the Jeskai decks I'm used to are always playing like two for ones if you can help it. Like other than your removal, which is just exceptionally efficient, like Plow or Prismatic Ending, all your creatures or anything you're really looking to put on field is going to two for one. This kind
Yep,
of isn't.
correct.
Like if you just play it and it just bolts, then you kind of shrug your shoulders and you move on, I guess. But it's been better than I thought and more worth defending than I guess I initially realized. I don't know if you agree with that assessment or if you've tried it, but it's a card that I thought the floor would matter a lot. I guess I thought the floor would be the real problem, and the ceiling was like, even if you flip this, it's like an okay planeswalker. I guess that was the other half, like realizing how quickly she ultimates. Actually, it really sneaks up on you, like if you're not pressuring.
Yeah, I also have concerns about the floor of Tamio, but you covered most of the thoughts that I have already. Like if she gets removed, that's a removal spell that's not being pointed at Stoneforge or Narset, which is good. If she does stick, she's a very slow psychic frog, and it if you are sculpting a game plan, especially if you know which matchups it'll carry in, where you are willing to force of will a lightning bolt and then brainstorm to flipper and just race for the ultimate. Like if you, I have not played her enough to know where that's worth pursuing versus just accepting the one for one, clear out the removal spell.
Yeah,
But if you're identifying play patterns where that's viable, then that's pretty cool.
there are weird places too where like they'll bolt her with an onboard presence, and you can't really protect her sometimes because like if you flip her on their turn, they just kill her in combat at two loyalty. You know, it ain't a big ask. So
Right.
I have
Yep.
found that sometimes the self protection clause is a little shaky, but honestly, by the time you've drawn even like a single treasure, you're pretty happy for the most part. But yeah, I've been I've been liking her. It's just a lot of text for one drop, or more text than I think a one drop should have. Way more text. Um, the Ponder, yeah, I kind of went down on prismatic endings. Wrath of the Skies is one that I've been liking. I don't know if this is something you've tried, and I guess tied into that, another thing I'm testing is whether or not you need Tune to play it. Some generic thoughts. I think Tune is it's okay. Where I think Tune is really good is as the first. It's good at pushing the first Wrath of the Skies over the line. Um,
Yes.
but every tune that you see after that is like mostly just a redraw. There are times where you need to tune so you can like Snapcast or a Wrath of the Skies back. But for the most part, if you could just put a tune in my hand and I could cast it on turn one and never like see another one, I'd probably be fine with it. So that's kind of how I arrived at three. and it's this weird tight wire act because four you just see too many of them. If you play two, I find that I just don't see them until by the time I see them, it's too late to matter. Like if I'm on turn four, I'm just casting this wrath. Like I don't need
Do you
them.
have the list in a like box field or something that I could look at while we're talking about?
Oh wait. Oh geez, I forgot I'm not sharing screen. Oh geez, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I've been
Okay,
talking like
there we go.
I've been talking like you could see this.
Yeah, it was fine for a while. Then I'm like, oh wait, there's tunes in this deck.
No, no,
I need to see this.
no. I completely forgot. No. So that's kind of where I'm at with Tune. I don't know whether or not, and a redraw is kind of nice. It's a few extra stabs at a land if you need it, and it's kind of nice having a bunch of turn one plays actually between Tameo and Tune. It's like, oh, I can usually do something on turn one.
Sure. Yeah, and Snapcaster does mitigate the downside because we were talking about floors and ceilings earlier. The
Yeah,
floor on Tune is horrible. Like we just do not put reach through miss into decks
yeah,
uh, for a reason. Like it's just not good. But yeah, if you are juicing up Wrath of the Skies, that is worth a lot. So really, it's how often do you need the energy bump versus just like spending 4 or 5 mana on the first Wrath to kill what you need to kill. And yeah, that's really the friction there.
yeah. So it's felt okay, but at the same time, it is still a lot of slots. Like even if it is just like a random redraw, that it still is cards you're not playing, and you know, instead of at bare minimum.
Right. Yep.
So I mean, it's a thought. I kind of like it, but I could, if you asked me a month from now if I'm playing this, and I said no, I would not be surprised either.
Right. And my next like follow-up thought in deck building would be where else can we dump that energy? Because there are matchups where Wrath of the Skies just doesn't matter, or you don't need to zoom into it with an extra boost,
Yeah,
and then you have this bad cantrip taking up 3 slots in your deck for no real reason. And I don't have an answer, but if there is like a Scryfall energy filter for Jeskai, like is there somewhere else cool we could put Wayward energy if we don't need to Wrath, but we do
so
want to play these
so
tunes
there
to
is
support it?
kind of one. Maybe we'll get to it later. It's that a galvanic.
The discharge.
Yeah, the discharge, galvanic discharge or something. It's a lightning bolt that only hits creatures or other permanents in play, so it can't multiplayer. So one red, it puts three energy, and then you spend
Right.
energy to deal damage. So
Yeah, that's
that's
super efficient for red removal, but adding it to a white deck with that already has plow ending and wrath in it
yeah,
probably
that's where I
isn't
get kind of
adding much value.
about it. I haven't seen another energy card other than that card that I'd actually like consider putting in the shell.
Right.
I think that Wrath is pretty good on its own. Um, I don't know if I should say I don't need another energy card, but Wrath is very binary in that if they play to the board, it's almost like it almost turns like board states into a joke.
Right. Yep.
Like you just like against Painter, I used to have a pretty rough time, and now that I have this, it's like, geez, I haven't lost a Painter in like weeks at this point.
Yeah, it's just the old feeling of boarding in Meltdown versus Artifact decks, but it's in the main deck and it gets all permanents.
Yeah, but it's not
So,
even a meltdown.
right,
Like meltdown, they still have like this pile of goblins you got to figure out.
right,
This
right.
is
It's
like
way better.
it's everything. Like they don't have a plan anymore. Like you kill the
Yep.
land, you kill the creatures, you kill the artifacts, you kill the sagas, like everything. Like it all just goes. So yeah, there are some number of matchups where this thing just makes it like, oh my god, it's so ridiculous, and they can't play around it. Like they can't even pyroblast this. It's
Right.
gonna happen. Like I don't know. And then the other one. So I should mention that I haven't really built this for the current meta. Like I'm kind of in the mode that grief is gonna go, and until then I don't know, I'm just kind of chilling, I guess. I've been
Yep.
having thoughts about the non-basic suite, and I guess this might tie back to a question we can deal with later because it's going to come up in the league. Mainly Eldrazi. Um, that deck looks like kind of a nightmare. I guess even structurally for control in general to deal with.
Yes.
kind of flip flopping on what I'm supposed to do. Like back to basics has been my default answer. Other answers, like you can kind of see one in the sideboard that I was trying out, Harbinger. I don't love that it turns off my fetches, but it's gonna hurt Eldrazi more than me. Um, there's Blood Moon, which is probably the most effective, since you can't even dismember it. But turning all your non-basics red is going to be pretty painful, especially for a deck like mine, where I need like white to do stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know where you've been brewing, but maybe we can talk about it when we get to the Eldrazi deck. But that's one that I'm definitely looking at, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to do against that.
Yeah, I will. I have not tried to line up traditional control versus Eldrazi in the current metagame yet, but I did play a lot of traditional control the first time Eldrazi was a legacy deck, and it's tough is the answer. And back then I was doing back to basics and Blood Moon kind of stuff with like Terminus and Supreme Verdict to try to buy time.
Yeah,
Uh, like Wrath of the Skies, that's exactly the kind of matchup where you would want to ramp it out so the first one is more than you could pay
I
for.
kind of do it, and you'll see in the match. I wrath for like four, and it like doesn't even matter. Like I think the difference between this and the Eldrazi of old is that the Eldrazi's now have like these ridiculous EDB staple to them too.
Yep.
It's like it's not even just like a reality smasher that you gotta find. I'll plow it and discard whatever and move on. Now it's just now they're attacking your mana or they're getting other creatures. It's just yeah, the value side of it has really been what has been an unpleasant surprise. I'll say the triggers are all very good and they come out very fast.
Yes, and they're all working towards the Eye of Ugin endgame, which no control deck can beat if your
Yeah,
opponent has Eye active.
yeah, I think it's more of a problem now too because like I don't think this sort of deck has ever been strong against like post type decks, like the big mana stuff. But it was also pretty rare, and now it's feeling like Eldrazi's going to be like, I don't, maybe not tier one, but certainly at least tier one and a half, unless something else changes.
Yeah, I think that the Eldrazi deck is lower to the ground than a post deck, but it's also more durable than like Red Stompy. And it exists somewhere in between. Like it has draws where if they like, turn two or turn one chalice, turn two thought not seer, it's gonna feel like you're getting stompied. And then if you slow that down, it's gonna feel like you're getting posted. It's just like how do we navigate both halves of that deck in a way that is respectful of both? Because if you keep a hand with three plows, you're good versus the aggro. But if they just go straight to 9 mana and start doing other shit with those three plows still in your hand, that's
Yeah.
bad.
So
So yeah, where that lands in the metagame and historically beating up their mana has been the best solution to that.
okay, we can talk about it more when we get there. But yeah, this was what I was playing. This is what I brought through it.
Okay.
Again, basic heavy, maybe to my detriment. One thing I did find with Wrath, especially, is that you get really punished for missing land drops or not getting your colors right.
Yep.
I'm on three planes just because I feel like you really want to get at least two of them under you. And then I cut an archive just because if you want to play Wrath, I think I'm at the point where you just need your lands to stay. And the more non basics
Yeah.
you play, like yeah, you can lose to one wasteland on this if your plan is to ramp into a Wrath.
Yeah, and like I am intimately familiar with the managing that balance because generally I like having two planes and a bunch of ways to fetch them in decks like this because the second planes is so important to your sweepers. And, and like I understand why you'd want three, but then there's the games where like you fetch a planes with your second fetch land and then you just draw another planes and you can't cast any you can never double spell, like you can't ponder into ponder or anything
Yeah,
because you just have island planes for mana and you can't cast Narset, you can't really do anything.
which I kind of
So
like, but I'm also kind of hoping that the three tunes as redraws kind of help with that a little bit, but that might be a stretch in credulity.
yeah, I think that is a stretch. Like if those were preordains, maybe we could talk about that being part of your mana base. But like cantrips are supposed to be part of your mana base. Brainstorm and Ponder are part of your mana, but a card like Attune isn't. really. It just like pays to get itself out of the way. You're not actually really manipulating anything.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll go to the league then. For this one, this is a 3-2. It was Merfolk, Grixis Delver, Double Scam, and then Eldrazi at the end. I'm not too invested in talking about the Grief one, about the Scam matchups. If we have time, we have time. If not, I'm not sad if we skip them. But at least for the aggro matchups, for the Eldrazi matchup, I'm kind of curious what you have to say structurally about how the gameplay works. And then for the first two aggro ones, I'm trying to see where I can save chip damage or where I'm taking damage where I shouldn't.
Okay.
Because against Merfolk and Delver, you can lose on like one or two life points, and like it's pretty easy for like one sloppy play to just you don't even see it, and then it
Yep.
just snowballs to
Absolutely.
now I'm -2 instead of at one, to a bolt. But yeah, okay. So here's the first match. You can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this looks keepable. Removal, force of will, a turn two play, and a cantrip. I don't. Yeah, this is perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yep. We keep these.
Yeah. So he plays this. Is Merfolk the only deck that does this? That plays this kind of card?
I would. My default thought would be like some kind of combo deck. Uh, like anyone doing any kind of oops all spells thing or trying to sneak an answer to Chalice of Void into a storm deck or something could be interested in a card like this.
Okay.
Uh, as soon as they cast like an Aether Vial or a Curse Catcher or whatever's about to happen, we're gonna know the answer.
Yeah.
But I would be thinking like Paradoxical Outcome or some One Ring kind of deck before I think of Merfolk, just in terms of meta share.
Okay. I had bent in the way of combo, but I wasn't sure because I know that Oops All Spells is really interested in these like spell lands, but I hadn't seen it in a while, so I wasn't sure. Or it's the
Yeah,
other
Oops is
ones.
mostly mono black, but
Yeah.
you could see like one or two of these in a deck like Coveted Jewel Paradox combo because they do want to support Force of Will, but they also want to keep their spells low, so they can shred with Mystic Forge and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. My brain just thought combo first, although it didn't
Yep.
know like what direction exactly. But okay.
Right.
So he taps it. I wasn't really sure. Maybe just a slow combo start. I'm pretty sure I just did Stoneforge here, just to get something going. Yeah. I thought combo, so we'll just get Cauldra and go racing. Yeah, okay, so clearly Merfolk now.
Yep. Now we know.
So here I decided, well, not really decided, I just was going to race. Um,
Yep.
Question here, would you have pondered in this situation?
I think so.
Okay,
They're gonna have their own counter spells. They're gonna have Cavern of Souls. They're gonna have ways that could punish you trying to hold up a bunch of forces. I am way more interested in white cards than blue cards in this matchup, and I would be trying to convert Ponder into a Plow or a Wrath or just something else here.
okay, yeah, I didn't ponder, so that's one of those little edges I guess I gave up. Looking back, I was like, I probably should have.
You also could have forced the Lord of Atlantis. That's an option. Just that is the one of the ones that makes all their shit unblockable, and just the first creature down is the one that starts the chip shots. If they find a Cavern of Souls next turn, then your force is blank for the rest of the game. Like I even think like force pitching force would have been reasonable there. I understand having prismatic ending in hand. Maybe you want to hold back. You have another answer to that. You could save force for something like True Name Nemesis that's likely to cause more problems. It's just something to think about in terms of whether to let that resolve or not.
Yeah, because once they have the not temple, cavern, then your
Yep.
forces are kind of blank anyway, so might as well. Okay, yeah, so I didn't. Yeah, and then they have the wasteland, so this one I do for, so I probably should not have pitched the Narset.
I think pitching Narset's fine. She's not going to do anything for your game here. Though I am interested why you didn't continue forcing. Like you forced pitching Narset, they forced back. Why is it worth why is it worth a 2 for 1 but not a 4 for 3?
Hmm. I guess I thought I had the answer in hand, and my other fear was there's a true name coming, and I'd rather stop that than one of the Lord of Atlantises. In my head, I'm still racing, and I know that if they're forcing, they're probably not stopping the prismatic ending. In which case, I'm doing 6 damage to their two, which seems favorable. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Cauldron has trample, so you are still winning the race versus a true name even. So like if you didn't have Cauldron play, I would understand always being ready for true name because that is the one card in their deck that can really flip a game by itself. Everything else is just kind of a math problem.
yeah,
So I understand that, but with Cauldron down, pushing damage, uh, and being able to answer that Lord of Atlantis, there's still another one in play. Like you could have forced back, ended the one that was in play, and then keep bashing with Cauldron to their nothing.
yeah. And then their true name just doesn't matter. Okay,
Right, and you're just trampling over their true name, and they can't really attack with it either.
okay. I mean, I guess part of it was also that if I force ponder, I mean, I didn't know brainstorm was what was on top. So if I force ponder, then I have prismatic ending and question mark in hand. And I don't know whether that's good enough to beat them from 14. Was my other thought.
Well, the way that they're gonna stabilize, they can either bounce your germ somehow, like if they have the merfolk that bounces a tapped creature, or if they
Yeah, I
find
didn't know that.
another
That's
sink
hard.
into super. Like there's a couple ways they have that might bounce a Cauldron germ, but in general, I just don't want them to get stats that overcome the race that's in front of me. So now, like instead of 0 Lord of Atlantis, they have 2. Uh, and instead of attacking for 0 and having nothing with Island Walk, they have 2/3/3s with Island Walk, and you just took 3 damage. So like even if they do come up with a 2/2 that bounces your germ, if there's 2 Lord of Atlantises in exile or the graveyard, then that might just be a 2/2, and we can figure out how to beat that vanilla 2/2 from there.
Okay. All right. So what did I do here? So I just probably pondered to find a land. Yeah. Yeah. Probably prismatic ending one of the Lord of Atlantis. Yeah. Attacking for 6. Felt okay at this point. I have a good board state. Force brainstorm. Forcing that. That was a pretty bad draw, but what are you gonna do?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is what I was talking about the true name. Like you're still attacking for more than them, even if the true name is in play.
Yeah. And at this one, I'm just dead at this point.
Yeah, they just totally flipped it on raw stats. And
Yeah.
it's that first Lord of Atlantis that has done all of the damage up to this point.
Okay. And it's still doing more. Okay. I don't know if it
Right.
would have mattered in this one if Harbinger is how they win, but yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I can't know they have Harbinger, so I can't look at it that way.
Right. And just like being aware of what cards they might play, because I was worried about Harbinger when we were talking about how could this game go wrong 2 turns ago. And you said, yeah, I didn't know about that one, but you were hyper aware of True Name Nemesis. So just even knowing what tools the deck has available to know where to point your counter spells
Yeah,
is an important skill.
in retrospect, it looks like it makes Batterskull look even more important in this matchup since that's never going to give Harbinger anything to do
Right.
with
But
Vigilance
True
and
Name
that.
bricks that one up completely. So they kind of have an answer to one and an answer to the other that
Yeah.
are better and worse.
All right, that's fair. Okay, so that was game one. I think this is oh I think this is another good instance of where like normally Wrath would be an out for this, but I can't even draw to it at this point because that Tundra Wasteland turn one. I can't even
Right.
like Wrath on two. So like I guess it's one of those things where you don't even have that out, and one Wasteland shut it down. Like
Right.
it wasn't even like multiple Wastelands, it was just one.
Yeah, that's the flip side of these basic heavy mana bases. Frequently, you instead by trying to avoid getting wastelanded at all, when you do have to get wastelanded, it's frequently devastating.
Yeah,
Where like a Delver deck, if they just fetch four non-basics over a game and get two of them wasted, they still have perfect mana off their remaining two lands. Here, like it took you off your double color.
I didn't even
Right.
have it in hand, but yeah, it's just one thing that I it's just one more thing I can't draw. Is all it is.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So for this one, I took out Spell Pierces. There's a Narset and a Back to Basics. So that's what, four cards. I brought in three Pyroblasts and the third Wrath of the Skies, which seems
Yep, that makes
pretty
sense.
intuitive. Okay. I kept Force. I figured there's probably they still have forces, and I can probably still kill something at some point. So here's one where I'd see. This is a matchup where I like Tamio. I know it's a fast matchup, and it's a slow frog, but at least it gets me cards going. Um, and
Yeah.
they typically don't have a way to deal with it. No, I think they do deal with it on this one, unless I'm mistaken.
And
Yeah,
if they
yeah, they have
dismember
yeah
that,
they have
that's
dismember.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a deal. We take those.
yeah. Pyroblast, I'm feeling okay. I got a bunch of red blasts and plows. Like, yeah, I'm feeling okay. I'll build up to a wrath eventually. This is kind of where it can get a little scary because I have to choose pyro. I mean, I have to get red, right? I'm not going to turn off like two pyroblasts in my hand um, to just to get white white eventually. I figure I'm going to let him play the board a little more and hope to find another white source. I didn't plow there. I don't know whether that was correct or not. I kind of figured I wanted more value than just to save one life.
So nothing here is really worth one life. Like the hex catcher, it's a lord for their whole squad, and it's a spell or a mana tithe attached to every single creature they have.
Yeah,
Like there's a lot more going on. It's gonna be worth more than one life by the time we get there. So thinking in multiple turn stretches. And is Hexcatcher non-creature or instant and sorcery? I think it's
target non-creature spell unless it's creature
okay.
that pays one.
Okay, so that also stops you from casting Cryptic Coat this turn by that just being in play.
Yeah,
Which is that stinks. I mean, you're kind of in the squeeze here because you don't really want to tap out or tap out of Pyroblast on a turn where they might present True Name Nemesis
yeah,
unless you have 5 mana with a Wrath ready to go, which you don't. So using mana on their turn, even if it seems low impact now, lets you do stuff like cast Cryptic Coat or leave up Pyroblast while doing something else on this
okay,
follow up turn.
yeah. I guess I
I
was
think
hoping.
plowing that Hexcatcher would have been totally worth doing.
Okay, because my other thought was if I draw planes here, I can wrath and get a 2 for 1. But no, they saw the hex catcher out where they could just sack and counter it for 1. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I think at this point I just plow it and then attack step, right? Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm doing. I don't think Tide Shaper is good enough to point removal spell at, so I'll just take it. I don't know why I tapped 3 there. Yeah. So here's Wrath.
Yep.
I hope they don't have a force. They don't. We're good. Kind of hope they don't have a wasteland next, so I can play Narset. But
Yeah, it's
this was
True
my
Name that
other
I'm worried
fear.
about
Like
here.
that was
Yeah.
my other fear when I tapped out. It's like they're probably just sitting on a true name. Um,
Yeah, that was kind of I don't know if they just drew that or if they walked you into it, but that's exactly the play pattern I was talking about where if you end up in a spot where you're tapping out of Pyroblast, that's where they slide the true name in, and Wrath is your cover for true name. And you just used Wrath on a bunch of shit that could be plowed or pyroblasted, and then they stuck a true name when you're not holding a Wrath and the pyroblast is tapped out. So they whether they walked you into it or they just happen to draw their cards in this order, this is exactly how we don't want these games to go.
So, in retrospect, would you have just spent your point removal on the smaller merfolk and withheld the wrath until they committed the thing we can't deal with?
Yeah, what's the second creature was it? That was a Master of the Pearl Trident,
Yeah,
right?
as another lord,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, I probably would have uh either pyroblasted that in the end step, uh, or just let them have a turn. Like just pyroblast nothing, go back to my turn, see what I draw, go back to their turn, see how things look. Like I don't want to be caught without Wrath or without Pyroblast, knowing that True Name's in their deck.
Yeah.
Like whatever we have to do to cover one of those two bases is how I want to play the game.
Okay. Yeah. So this would have been one where if I kept the wrath, then I have wrathless guys for 3. But now I'm just kind of here with Narset praying to find something.
Right.
And of course, that's not going to do anything against this. I mean, it's kind of a draw one, game 3, or like a dig through time that draws you life. But yeah, that's about all it does. I think they
And
pointed.
we'll take a cantrip that gains life here, though.
Oh,
That's not a bad deal on
yeah.
this board where we're just dead in 5 hits.
Okay. My only other thought was if I should have plowed the Harbinger of the Tides there since that was 2 damage at me, but I didn't think it was worth a swords or a plow. Um, and it's also not really the thing that's going to kill me. It's going to be the true name that rips my head off, or the lords. But
Yep.
okay, yeah, I think I just try for a coat here to get something on board. What was this card again? Oh, I forgot what card that. I can't show it here. Nothing I can do. That was another 2 in the narrative. Here I'm just trying to save life. Um, Lucky Duck. Here's Wrath.
Yep, that
I,
is the out we were looking for.
I missed that I should have recalled Coat there. I had one in a blue open.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that sucks. Because I was just about to say this is a common board state that blue white X controlled X end up versus Merfolk where nothing going on for them. We have like one or two more answers in hand, and then they just draw 3 creatures in a row and we lose.
I will say the only other thing that that I was probably thinking was that if I return Coat, then I'm in the same situation where no, I'm not. No, I'm not Shield Sound. I have Force Blue card. Yeah, what am I saying? I'm an idiot. Okay. If you spend that, I can't Pyroblast, but I'll have Force Blue card, so
Right.
I'll be okay. Yeah. Just another creature. I think now I'm just in a position where I can just Pyroblast and start forcing things as they come down. Probably what I did, right? Did I take 2? No, I did not. Just gonna find all my forces. I forced this. I kind of am at a low enough life total where I don't want any end of turn surprises. I don't know if that was worth it or not. At least that was my
And
thought.
with 3 Force of Wills in your hand, you should just kind of be pointing them at stuff.
Okay.
I agree. And you have the hard cast mana. Even if this is bait, you can pitch cast on the other card in their hand. I would force that as well. That's basically Mind Twist if it resolves.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna sit here and stare at each other, I guess. One of us will find something to do eventually. Yeah, no surprise. Here's a force. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was a pretty good exchange for you. Now we just gotta find some way to win the game.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Now we're cooking. Stoneforge, I'll probably get like Batter Skull to get me off the bottom. Yeah. Okay. Now he has like one turn to stick a true name if he has it. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that one definitely, I think, like you were talking about, looking for those sequencing decisions or where to save two life early that matters later and stuff. That one, I think, uh, you kind of misevaluated which thing you were supposed to fight over and when, and it resulted in them sticking a true name. And then you kind of, the deck delivered and you were able to get out from under it a couple times in a row. But that was definitely the type of thing where, if you just drew a land instead of Wrath later on,
Then nothing.
you
Yeah.
lose. So that's that's a good example of looking for, like, thinking about the that Vidalian Hexcatcher in terms of, I don't think this is worth one life, but it's a lord, so it's going to be worth one life, then three, then five, etc. Plus the onboard. I can't cast my spells because it's a bunch of four spikes in play. Like that one, I think is a pretty clean Swords to Plowshares. And just thinking about the game in terms of, like, over the next 3 or 4 turns, what is this thing gonna represent versus the one damage it's dealing now.
I guess where I also got caught up was trying to find a spot where I can pull a 2-for-1 out of my Wrath and just getting so tunnel visioned on that that you miss like what Wrath is actually good at killing, which was the true name, right?
Yep.
Because I have point removal for the other stuff, but if I'm so obsessed with pulling out max value from this Wrath that I let the thing I can't answer through, then that could have very easily won them the game on its own.
Right.
Okay. All right. Game three. So here's kind of one spot where I like Tune. I can just kind of do something turn one, or oh no, I must have just pondered. All right. Okay. Fine. Ignore me. Maybe I just kept it as like force spot fodder. That probably sounds reasonable too. Okay.
Mhm.
Now force is off. Here, I think my intent was to plow a threat and then tune.
Yeah, I like this game how you're just kind of like dealing with any little creature that shows up, like that plow at 20. I feel like even from last game, I feel like you would have taken the two because it's just two and, whatever. But it might be because you have more, or you just drew that second plow, so you didn't
Yeah.
even know you had another plow coming.
No.
So it's just interesting that how I would have liked to play last game is happening here in game three, and that
Okay.
might be you learning on the fly, or so. What? How long ago did you record this? Do you have memory of what you were
22nd.
thinking at the
So it's
time?
about a week ago.
Okay, so did you learn from game two and think like, oh, that was close. I should be more careful. I should plow more early, or are you just sort of, kind of at
I
random and we're seeing two outcomes here?
I would like to give myself credit for that. I can't quite remember. But I think the other thought was I know they have Cavern and I know they have True Name, and this time I don't have Wrath in hand to just sweep up the chaff. So I probably need to stay higher if I'm ever in doubt. Because I think the
Yep.
other game I was building up to a Wrath. I could see myself building a game where they're going to put a bunch of ones and twos on board and I'm going to Wrath and sweep it. In this case, I have no Wrath. So if it gets out of hand and I don't find Wrath, that's kind of it.
Okay. So you
Um,
are operating differently based on the cards that are currently in front of you.
yeah, that at least that's how I'm thinking about it now. And I'm guessing that's how I probably thought about it then.
Okay.
But
All
yeah,
right.
there was also probably the thought that wow, that was kind of close. Maybe I shouldn't be taking as much chip damage as I'm signing up for.
Right. Right. Yeah, because that's the thing about Merfolk. Like, you want to. plow the Lord of Atlantis or whatever the big payoff is, but also their random shitters attack for 2 just fine,
Yeah.
and you only get 20 life. So it is a balance.
Okay. Well, he has a true name here. Nothing I can do about this one. Um, at this point, I'm pretty much just digging for Wrath. Anything in my power that I can do. I think I played Tamio, maybe, but we'll see. I don't exactly recall. Okay, yeah, Stoneforge.
Yeah,
I
I
figure
like
I can
getting
kind of
on board
lock it
here.
up this way. I figure I
So
can lock up the true name that way, or at least null it out, even if I can't
yeah,
remove it.
yep,
So he'll get his 3, whatever. At this point, I'm willing to force a Dismember if he has it. Harbinger's not such a big deal.
yep. That's just a 2/2 versus your deck for the most part.
Yeah. So this is a spot where I like Tamio. Like they don't deal with it, and I know it's a slow frog, but that is also a card that I otherwise don't get to draw, and it's not attackable unlike something like Narsat.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, sure. Pretty sure I just batter skull and then draw my free card.
Yep.
I'll do that. Go ahead. I think I pass. Yeah, I pass knowing that I can do the batter skull trick. Just pick it up and redeploy.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not under so much pressure that I feel that uncomfortable to do it. Do the whole
Yeah, you're
board
winning
wipe
the
thing.
race here.
Yeah.
One thing to consider is Tashana's Tidebinder is a card they might have, but not that it changes your play. You're still just going to do this and flush out the thing, but at least think about that as a one of the tricky merfolk they might have.
Okay. There it is again. Probably go to like attack step and just see what's what. Yeah, so he does that. He has a little combat trick. Yeah, so next turn I can actually put it in the air and fly, which will be nice. Yeah, another true name. It's not it's not great, but right now I'm figuring I can just race with Tamio. I'm drawing extra cards. I'm really taking net 2 from this, and the second that I find a Wrath, I feel like I'm pretty far ahead. Um, so it's just a question of finding one of the 3 Wraths, if it even comes to that in my mind right now.
Yeah, yeah, you are losing the race, but you're seeing more cards than them. Yeah, it's basically can you clear the true names or not
Yeah.
is the question, or find something like Cauldra for a surprise burst of damage at the end.
Yeah, when you say that, I think that actually ends up being what happens. I should have pondered there. I feel like um, just leaving one man up like that when I know I should be actively digging for something is not
Yeah,
great.
yeah, we just talked about Wrath. I would want to try to find one
Yeah.
and be using any cantrip I can to do that.
So here's 6. I'm losing net to a turn. Okay, sure. What's he doing now? Harbinger. Yeah, okay. I think I took the shuffle. Yeah, and there's what you were saying. I just here's another Stoneforge. I chose to just keep it back as a blocker. But I suppose I could have attacked, but I don't know if that improves the clock meaningfully or not.
Yeah, stopping these ground creatures is reasonable to do.
Okay. Yeah, now he flashes this thing in. This one I think is worth the swords. Just I don't want to be taking. The clock
Yeah,
is
it's
close enough.
immediately worth
Yeah.
2 damage. Yep.
So I think that's where he packs it in. I think this is one situation where I like having Tamio even in an aggressive matchup. I mean, granted, I haven't drawn the cards, but the clue tokens are there to the side when I need them, and she's also incidentally just a body I can stick things to. Like he can't even come up with a board with TNNs at this point.
Yeah, a flying creature, even if it's kind of a mopey one, is worth a lot. That was a really cool pivot when the Tamio picked up the Batterskull.
Yeah, it didn't occur to me initially. I was like, oh yeah, she can fly. I can just strap this to her. Now she's drawing me cards, gaining life, and kind of doing everything I need her to do. I don't even want to flip her, truthfully, at this point. Like, she's worth more to me as a critter.
Yeah, that actually gives me a lot more interest in her as a card in the deck. I also didn't immediately consider the fact that she could just wear Batterskull or Cauldra.
Yeah, I mean, next turn I'm what, like 1 mana? No, I even have it. I can just Tundra and then, I flicker in Batterskull, make my Tundra drop, pay 7, equip Cauldra to Tamio. Now it's
Yeah, and
like
then you're
pretty much,
unraceable, which is why they scooped. Yep,
yeah,
they saw the line.
pretty much unbeatable at that point.
Yeah.
So that was this one. I didn't even need a Wrath. It turns out I just needed the second Stone Forge. You kind of mentioned that like maybe there's some way to burst damage. And yeah, that's kind of what pushed it over. That and a flyer.
Yeah, or get like 12 lifelink in the air.
Yeah,
That's going to be hard for them to
that'll do it
mess
too.
with too.
All right, so that was game one. So game two. I think this one was Grixis Delver. Yeah, this one must have been. If I'm remembering right. Pretty happy with this. Um, in this case, I think there might be an argument to just keeping Tamio back, and so you can play her and protect her next turn if you need to. Um, I kind of thought that was a little conservative in the dark, so I figure I'll just jam it and see what happens.
Yeah, in a format with days and turn one wins and whatever. I like just sticking my thing, especially when I'm on the play. Make
Yeah.
them come to me.
So yeah, here's my Tamio, and they force it. Oh, okay, sweet. Um,
Yeah, great deal.
yeah, I'll take that. It's Force Ponder, could be anything. Volk, Ponder. I kind of thought Delver. Maybe there's like a combo deck that does something like this, like Show and Tell. I haven't seen anything that points to Delver yet. Or yeah, okay, this was now it's Delver.
Okay. Yeah, and that's actually interesting to me because that gives us more information because if they're willing to force Tamio in a deck that plays Lightning Bolt, Unholy Heat, possibly main deck Pyroblast, like a bunch of stuff like that, that also tells me they don't have those cards.
Yeah, I had up until that point read it as, oh, they're probably a combo deck, and they don't want to see an engine start spinning that they can't control. Um, because yeah, you're right. In like a Delver deck, they just have bolts or whatever. They'll just kill it in their own time. They don't need a force.
Right.
But apparently they did this time. If it's Delver, I'm perfectly fine sitting where I'm at. I got brainstorms. I got plows. I'm just not in a hurry. I think I plow here, right?
Yeah, and you're doing exactly what we want to do in this matchup, which is play a bunch of basic lands. There's a wasteland rotting over there. They don't have a threat in play. We have another plow lined up. This is exactly what we want to do with our lives as a Jeskai control deck in the matchup.
Yeah, I didn't have hopes for this Narset sticking. I was kind of thinking he'll have to force it or something. But I get an activation. Maybe he bolts it next turn, or maybe he bowmasters. We'll just see whatever happens.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Still a 2 for 1, still a good deal. And the upside of if it just sticks, we're doing great.
There's the bolt. So here's a decision. Oh, okay. So I brainstorm. I don't really see much. So here's a decision that I wasn't sure about at the time. I decided to go for Snap Plow.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm unsure about is whether I should save that plow for a Murktide that I suspect is in their hand. Because if they deploy a Murktide, and it's what at this point like a 6, it can be like a 7, and I've just blown my 2 plows on small creatures, I'm in real shit.
Yeah, I think casting your 2 cantrips is probably where I'd want to be. Start with Tune and then have information to brainstorm with, and then we could decide how we want to move forward here. Because wrathing a Murktide possible but not likely from this position,
Yeah,
and yeah, or This game has unfolded exactly how we wanted it to up to this point. Now we just need to make sure Murktide doesn't kill us. That's the job right now.
My only other thought was if I just get rid of this, then I have three ways to find my next removal spell. Like okay, Tune isn't really a way, but it just replaces itself. I can dig with the
Yeah,
Narset. They haven't shown a force yet. I don't think that's their last two cards. And if they
right.
are,
I don't think so
yeah.
either.
And then I have Brainstorm too. So I guess my other thought was I have like I can look at 4, 5, like 7 or 4, 5, 8, 9 cards next turn if I really need to. I
Yep.
think I can find it, but yeah, I don't know if that was right or not, or if you should just stick with the sure thing that you know you have. But
I think at least tuning first, see what that comes up with. I guess Tune turns on days, but you're at 17. Like you can take a hit from DRC. It's not a huge deal. I think I would have used that as a setup turn at 17 life, and then if I miss, it's fine. We plow it next turn, but at least I looked at a million cards.
okay, yeah, so maybe that one was a little aggressive to go after DRC. All right. The only other thing I'm kind of worried about is well, okay, now I don't have to worry about I know this is in the deck. I was The only thing that I was worried about the brainstorm was a Orcish Bowmaster, but now that he's tripped is only black, not so much an issue.
Right.
But I'm gonna do that thing now that I think I talked about last turn, where if I see something and I don't know what to do, I can just draw a shit zillion cards. Or,
Yeah, because Murktide is a concern. Frog, you have slightly more answers, and you found one of the ones that would answer Frog, but not Murktide here.
yeah,
But I think Frog is as scary, maybe worse than Murktide
I would agree with that assessment.
on this board.
Now I'm just gonna go bananas and just try and find stuff. I think I took Batterskull. Okay, I didn't want to draw the Cauldron. I took Batterskull as just a way to gunk up the floor. Um, if you want to make Psychic Frog fly, then it's going to come at the cost of, probably a Murktide region at this point, or a very big
Yeah,
one.
Murktide, Delirium, both affected. Future
Yeah.
Flying affected.
So, whoopsie. Dadgummit. I hit two again. I always do that. Sorry. Okay, we're like here somewhere. Yeah. Okay, we're like a turn behind. Tune, Brainstorm. Yeah. Yes, I draw Cauldron, which is a little unfortunate. Let's go with Narset. Yeah, so here's one where I'm like, this is maybe a different spot that could have gotten a little weird. I'm pretty sure I just plow the frog here, but it's just another answer that I don't have to a Murktide Regent.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm almost positive you should not let a frog just run roughshod either.
So with Narset in play, you could here get a little squirrely and try to get some extra advantage because the frog doesn't draw anymore. They have to answer Narset first.
Yeah, I
If
think
they jump the frog, discard 2 cards, try to clear Narset, you can plow them from Hellbent and get a bunch of extra value out of it.
I think I
If they
do.
just,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah, okay, yeah, we'll see what happens here, but that you are in a lot of control right now,
I'm
where they have to come to you.
I'm pretty sure that I did recognize that I should plow on their turn, given how frog works. They could pour any number of resources into it. At the very
Right,
least, they're gonna have to jump it, right? Like so.
right.
And then depending on if they want to kill Narset outright, they might even discard some stuff. Who knows? Yeah, I don't think I did anything. Yeah, I didn't do anything at the moment. Molten Collapse, sure. Yeah, so he does that thing where he exiles stuff. It's not quite enough to matter. I'm still pretty sure he can do a big Murktide, and he forces. Ooh, I don't know if I like this. So what do I do here? Yeah, I probably just ponder. Yeah, I figured Tameo for a blocker, deploy Batterskull. Now at this point, I'm not sure exactly how much control I'm in. Um, he can keep jumping the frog, but he also can't grow it, right? So frog is just going to be
Right.
kind of chip damage in all likelihood. DRC's kind of scary, but it's also one of those cards that can be underwhelming once you're at 0 in hand, since it's hard to flip stuff if you're not casting spells. And I do have this batter skull, and I'm also kind of thinking, oh, I can glue this to the Tammy or whatever, right? We can go to town. Um,
Yep.
Tameo as a blocker, it's possible, but about the only thing I'd actually think about blocking is Frog. I think I'm not going to trade her into a DRC to save myself a bolt when I have Batterskull in play.
Yeah, I like Tamio. When they're hellbent, Tamio is a great answer to Frog. She flies. They don't have enough cards to discard to get through her. Batterskull is winning the race versus the DRC. I
So
like your
here,
position here.
I think looking back on it, I was potentially too conservative. I held Tameo back as a blocker for Frog. I think the play was probably glue Batterskull onto Tameo and make them have a lightning bolt right now, kind of thing. Um,
I think that's worth doing. I mean, drawing Force of Will actually changes a lot of my opinion about that. Because I guess they draw to two cards next turn, which makes Frog 3/4, big enough to punch through Tamio. Uh, yeah, maybe putting in the test right now and getting your 4/7 that they can never beat is the way to do it. And you could still do it second main, but you lose out on
yeah,
the
but like,
clue, but you still
yeah,
have the blocker.
yeah, I guess. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you would just want to gain the four.
Yes, you should
Yeah,
you should have done it first main, definitely.
I don't think I did it at all. Maybe I can't remember. Maybe I was looking at the force like, oh, gee, this would be nice to hard cast. But yeah, I didn't. I
Yeah,
think the other thought in my head is, ooh, like if they have bolt, then I go from a very comfortable board state to, yikes, I am very much behind in a hurry.
right.
I think I decided to make him discard some stuff there. Just if you're gonna do it, do it.
Yep.
So yeah, now his frog's like a 3/4. He's cashed out both cards in hand, so you know, I guess that's fine.
Yeah, now we're worried about Frog and don't have a flyer though.
Yeah. Then at this point, I kind of figure I'll just go for the throat and just start. Because now at this point, I know he doesn't have bolt. He doesn't have blast. At least he shouldn't. So now I just have like the 6/5, and you can more or less draw whatever you want, I think. And then next turn, I just do Stoneforge into Cauldron, then crack in.
Yeah.
So at least in my head, it was the only thing that gets me a little bit nervous is a Murktide Regent right now, like right now. But you're also Hellbent, so it's you're gonna have to either just draw it outright or cantrip into it.
Yep.
Oh jeez, I did it again. We'll just play back to that. So yeah, there's the attack. He takes it. I'm just kind of accepting he's going to draw cards at this point. I'm going to win on the ground or I'm not. And yeah, that was enough. Yeah, so that was the plan. I think the most questionable thing that I did in that was not gluing the batter skull to the Tameo. If I had done that, then I don't think I'm losing this game like ever, pretty much.
Yeah, the only way you can lose here is if Frog run a runners, like they draw Brazen Borrower plus Murktide or something like that from Hellbent, and the only way they can draw two cards in a turn is Frog. So yeah, invalidating the Frog on that when you had the window to do that would have been really good.
Darn. Okay, yeah. I sometimes I think as a habit I just play too scared. Like I just see like the if I go for this and they have bolt, I turn a stable position into just like an absolute dog shit position. Um,
Sure. Yep.
but also they only have one card. Like sometimes you just got to make them do it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was game
And
one.
there
Yeah,
like there's no risk to that play is the other trick because if you activate the equip ability. The risk is you tap out of Force of Will, but there's no. If they have Lightning Bolt or Pyroblast, or Pyroblast is a huge risk, but if they have Lightning Bolt, they could just bolt Tamio anyway, and then the equip just fizzles and you attack with your germ like you did.
Yeah.
So it's pretty low risk in that spot.
Yeah. They also they don't have blast right now, which would make me even more worried. Because this is just game one, so as far as I know, they're not playing blast main yet. But who knows?
They
Maybe.
don't be surprised because this matchup is, especially the mirror and scam, are mostly about Psychic Frog, and Lightning Bolt never kills that thing. So don't be surprised about one main deck Pyroblast out of Grixis Delver.
It's so crazy. Like 2 months ago, was a point where I was just like cutting. I was thinking about cutting blast almost entirely, but now it's like, oh man, I might need like
Yep.
four of these things, like just in a hurry.
Yeah, there's suddenly one very good blue card in a lot of shells.
Yeah, a couple blue cards, but yeah. Okay, so that was game one. Game two, I think yeah,
So we are at our hour here.
yeah. Oh, I thought this was a two.
Oh, what? Oh, uh,
Am I
I
mistaken?
don't. Let me check our notes.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I had 3:30 to 4:30, and yeah, you had a Jeskai Stoneblade list TBD and 1 hour. Uh,
Okay,
yeah, I wouldn't mind, but I do have someone else at 5. So uh, this is tight. But yeah, I had an hour for today.
okay. Um, you know, I guess the rest of these are fine. Maybe we can do it another time. I did have a couple questions. I guess. Do you have time? Do you have like 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, we can do that quick.
Yeah, I just got a couple of rapid fires. So from what you've seen so far, what do you think of Tameo, Wrath, and like Discharge and all that stuff? Is it just is it something you're interested in, or like just kind of you think?
I think Wrath of the Skies rules and actually does kind of shift the rules of engagement for a Jeskai control deck and what you can afford to jump out when you're against a strategy like that and what you can catch up to when you are the Jeskai player. I think that's awesome. I don't know if Tune is a good enough legacy card, even if it is laying up the Wrath, or certainly not in high numbers, maybe like one just in case. And with your Snapcaster deck, that kind of gives you more copies, but uh, I'm suspicious of that, though. Test to see what happens. And then Tamio's kind of doing her own thing. Like she's going to be bad versus Caracas decks, and um, but it is nice to challenge removal on turn one when you're a Stoneforge deck that's going to do something good on turn two.
Or just any
And
control deck in general. Like I feel like that's been
right,
an issue with control. You just don't do anything until like turn three, maybe.
well, it's not quite as simple as control because some control decks are so low on creatures that uh, you're actually getting card advantage when your opponent draws something like Swords to Plowshares or Dismember or Fatal Push, that there's just nothing to target with it until the game is over. Like if you're gonna push my 3/3 shark on turn 7, I feel like that's a different thing than like uh the Stoneforge Mystic. Because like Stoneforge Mystic specifically turns on Lightning Bolt and Fatal Push versus a control deck that otherwise would be not very good.
Yeah,
Tamio flushes out exactly those cards before the Stoneforge Mystic comes down, which is what we're looking for. So I think that that role is interesting. Uh, we'll see how she really lands, like what numbers are correct. Is the Planeswalker good enough to work with? Like those, all those questions will bear out in testing. But I think the theory of having a threatening 1 drop in a deck with a more threatening 2 drop is a good one.
okay. And moving on. So you haven't quite figured out how to beat Eldrazi as control, right? Because I guess that was my other overarching question. Like other than reaching across the table and screwing with their mana via Blood Moon, Harbinger, I guess Wasteland maybe, or like playing like something I've been seeing are just like 3 to 4 consigns somewhere across 75.
Yeah, consign is that stock is through the roof right now across all constructed formats. It's just You probably want two of those in your sideboard. It also helps versus like Doomsday and shit, which are other difficult matchups for Jeskai control. Messing with that is good. Um, you being a Stoneforge Mystic decks helps a lot compared to a slower control deck like a Shark Typhoon style deck because Cauldra can just show up and bash. So like don't die and win are the two things you have to do versus
Oh,
Eldrazi.
thanks.
And oh well, I mean
Yeah.
uh, that's true of all matchups,
Yeah.
but it's extremely pronounced in that matchup.
Yeah.
Uh, it's kind of like the Merfolk match we just played, except their creatures are bigger and their mana's weirder. It's the same kind of thing. Like, how can you stop early chip damage while still respecting the big important payouts? And then how do you turn around and win once you have a small window to do that?
And then, do you think consign is something that you can main, or is it? Because I used to play one or two stifles in the main. I don't know if consign is just so much worse than stifle that you can't just like put in the main and like find something to do with it, or what the deal is there.
It's a lot worse than Stifle
Yeah.
in those terms, but it is incredible in the spots that it's intended for. And like my video that went out today was Thought Lash combo with Thassa's Oracle,
Yeah.
and I won all the matches where my opponents didn't cast three consigned memories. But like nobody registered that card for me. They registered it for Eldrazi, but the fact that a sideboard card can hit Thassa's Oracle and Thought Knot Seer is crazy. Like that's just such a good range on a sideboard slot.
Okay.
But it could just
So you
miss
wouldn't
or
play
be
it main
irrelevant.
sideboard. Okay, that's
I
fine.
would not main deck it unless the format gets really centered around Eldrazi.
And then two or three more questions. I know you gotta go. Real quick. So after grief goes, where do you think combo takes off? Because there's, I don't know. I'm still sort of unsure how to handle that because I think there's still this whole question of what is not vexing bobble. Is that what it is? What does that bobble do to us now?
Bobble is just a powerful tool for Urza Saga combo decks to reach for. I'm not that worried about Bobble, especially if you have fair cards like Prismatic Ending that can clear it, or like Teferi that could bounce it, or even just like counter spells you can cast. Like Bobble doesn't do anything versus Flusterstorm, or even the Consign we were just talking about, which can also counter a Storm trigger. So I'm not that worried about Bobble. Just if you are against a combo deck and they have an Urza Saga ticking up, just be aware that that's a thing that might happen.
Okay. I guess I was more asking in the vein of like bobble storm or something where they do the veil and just plow through their own bobble without caring and then just kill you.
Well, you weren't going to beat that Veil anyway, so I'm not really worried about that. And
Yeah.
they have to make room for Bobble in a shell that is pretty tight. I just I'm not worried about vexing Bobble. Really, is my answer to that question.
Okay. Just on a lark, we got a couple of people really liking Flage. I don't see it. I don't know if you've like tried it all or seen it, something from it that impresses you, but it looks a lot worse than Uro, and red white white is tough. Like holy smokes.
Red white white is tough because you play 7 or 8 basic lands. Uh, if you have a bunch more duels than that, it can be supported reasonably. Maybe like one in the sideboard for hyper aggressive or hyper grindy situations, but I'm not that high on it, honestly.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, it's one thing to warp the mana to do it. I guess I just wasn't sure if like is the juice even worth the squeeze? Is I guess kind of what I'm asking. Because like you're gonna have to restructure the whole mana base to play this thing, and is a helix on a stick worth it?
Yep, and only testing can really bear that out in your metagame. Like if your metagame's full of death and taxes, it's probably pretty good, or even Merfolk, it's probably insane. But you're not going to want it in a lot of other spots. So I the way that your deck is constructed, I would not play Flage.
No,
If
I
you're
would not play it in mind.
yeah
You'd have to play a lot more non-basics, which I think causes more problems because you're just gonna get wastelanded off it before you can even like think about bringing
right,
it back. I think, but I don't
yep,
know.
entirely possible that that's how that goes.
Okay, we'll call it here. I'll book it for probably September and skip August. I'm going to be traveling, and I'm kind of just off the format for a bit in general anyway.
Sure. Yeah, you can reach out whenever you're ready.
Yep. Okay. And then yeah, I'll ship you some version of this to test. Feel free to adjust. The biggest thing I would probably be looking for is where to play consigns in this somewhere, but that's about the only
Right.
thing.
Yep,
All right.
makes sense.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Yep. All right. Talk to you next time.
Yep. Bye.